All right, everyone. Before you agree with the next opinion you hear, before you repost something that sounds right, ask yourself this: Did I think this true, or did I just inherit the thought? In a world where information moves fast and opinions spread even faster, how many of us are actually thinking for ourselves? Today, we're breaking that down. This is Perspective Shift. Welcome, Eric. Welcome back, man.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
That's awesome, man. All right. So, first off, I appreciate you jumping back in for another one. That first episode we touched on AI, I think it got a lot of people thinking, but this one right here, my friend, feels a little more personal because now we're not just talking about technology, we're talking about how people think. So I'm glad we're doing this one. So
Same here. I think that this episode is actually the preface to the AI episode. So technically we're going backwards. This will be the first episode and then AI will be the second episode.
all right, so let's get through it. Here we go.
All right.
Do you think most people today are actually thinking for themselves or just following what they see?
I think that people are thinking for themselves initially, but then because they don't want to be the one person in the room who has a different thought, they go ahead and just agree with the whole group anyways. So then that way they don't get pointed out. It's kind of just like in school. Somebody can say something and in your head, you're like, that was dumb. But then everybody else, because this person is cool or they're a rich kid, everyone's just going to go their way. You know, prime example, the person running the country, silver spoon. He never had a silver spoon. He had a gold. He had a platinum spoon, point blank, period. And that's the society that we live in now. It's a very bandwagony, just hop on the bandwagon type. As long as you're following the group, you won't be called out. You can have what you think is access, but it's not even really access. It's it's a very tiny percentage of the person you're following that they're even getting. For yourself, at least, that you're barely even getting what the person that made this initial statement that they're clearly wrong about, and just because you want to follow behind them, it's so small. That's why it's important that when we go vote, I'm not voting for somebody just because they're a Democrat, because I have conservative views myself. So there are certain people, whether it's a city, state, federal level, I look into them first. I actually go see what they did. I try to look at something like a certain issue that they're talking about, and when I hear them say, "Oh, I've been fighting for this issue for 5-10 years," I actually go look back 5-10 years and see if they were really saying that, and if they've been really doing what they said, and I can actually see it, then that's believable. People today do think for themselves. I don't want anyone to get that misconstrued. It's just like when you're a kid. If you ask your mom, can you have some candy that's in the fridge? She says, no, you can't have any. You know what she meant. But then when she falls asleep, and because there might be other kids in the house, you probably go in the refrigerator, eat that candy. And then when she wakes up and sees it's not there, then anybody can get blamed now. Everyone can just say no now. So then there's no accountability. So that's where we live in, specifically here in America. There is no accountability whatsoever. So people know what they're doing. Just like, for instance, in politics, right? Our current president, the people that that voted for him, they were very strong for him his first term. Then when he tried to go for his second term and he had lost that to Joe Biden, they were still strong for him then. And then they were strong for him the third term, where he is the current president now. But because of the things that he's been doing, people like Tucker Carlson, people like Megyn Kelly, people like Marjorie Taylor Greene have all fell back, and they've publicly apologized because they knew from the onset what he was doing was wrong. Megyn Kelly herself said we overlooked a lot of stuff he did just because of certain things that they wanted passed, like immigration. So that's the thing about it. They knew he was doing things wrong and saying things wrong and not coming off as presidential as he could have. But they overlooked it and they just went with what the majority of his supporters were going for. They was like, oh no, we don't care about that. We're still with him. So of course, what they're gonna do? They're gonna bandwagon. They're gonna ride the train. So yeah, that's the first question is very good. People are thinking for themselves. They are just choosing to blatantly be wrong. And to me, in a sense, especially when it comes to something that has full control over your life and your kids' life and the generations behind your kids, that is a very evil act, in my opinion, for all the people who knew that they were doing wrong when it comes to what we're going through here in America.
Wow. Okay, so where do you think most people opinions actually come from?
Oh yeah, that's a really good question. I think that if it's something that really means a lot to them, of course it's something that comes from themselves. But for instance, when I was younger, I was born in 93. When I was younger, I stayed in a predominantly black neighborhood. And I remember, but some places we had to go, it was predominantly white. And I just remember going out to some of these places and I'm getting these looks. And I'm actually, as a kid, I didn't really know what racism was. I wasn't educated on segregation or anything. I knew in our neighborhood we had white people, but it wasn't a lot. They were outnumbered, like 10-1, but they were nice, and invited us over, so I never got the little black and white color scheme thing going now. I didn't know about color yet, racism. And but when these predominantly white areas, they were like really giving me looks where, I know when someone's mad at me. And so in my head, I'm asking this question. I'm like, what's wrong? Like, why are they mad at me? But I noticed that when around other white people, I was like, well, it seemed fine around them. Like, what is it about me? And then so I had to come up in my head, like, is it because I'm black? That's the first thing I said. Because, even the white kids staying in our neighborhood, I could tell we were different, but, just because, you had, blacks have their culture, whites have their culture, but we also have an interchangeable culture. We do mesh. We have a culture where blacks and whites, like, we mesh pretty very well with each other. But, I was, at the time I didn't know it was fact. It was my opinion. I'm like, I think it's because my skin is black. But then I could probably go to somebody else and they'd be like, oh, it's not just because you're black. It's because it could be somebody that's black in the neighborhood who might have all the money, and because they are what's the word? They have their own biases against their own people. They can be, oh, it's because you hang out with those hoodlums, which no, it's not. That's not the case. That'd be their opinion. Them telling me, I'm probably thinking to myself, well, I'm like, well, I've gotten a little trouble myself. So does that make me a hoodlum? I start second guessing myself, and that's somebody who looks like me telling me that, but that was their bias. That was their opinion. That wasn't a fact, because the kids I knew, weren't we got in trouble, but it was, like just, dumb things, might have took somebody's ball or, nothing crazy, wasn't like robbing or anything, like just real kid stuff. You're not going to, if another kid took my toy, and I get mad and they probably like, no, this is my toy. But then, my dad goes like, no, that's his toy. And, something like that. It wasn't anything really crazy. So that goes that goes for like my situation pretty much. And I think that um initially your opinions about certain things, it does come from yourself, but because we are human, we like to go to other people for opinions. And mind you, when we talk to another person, just because they tell us something doesn't mean that what they're telling us is a fact. An opinion is generally what do they think about something. And if I really want to know the truth, um that was something that, like, anything I ever wanted to know when I was a kid, I would specifically go to my parents for. I would go to my dad, I would go to my mom, and I might go to my auntie and my grandparents if I actually wanted to know about something versus getting their opinion on, hey, like, how do you think I look in the color red? But we live in a time now where opinions come off as fact now. Well, it literally comes off of fact. If you watch these media personalities in legacy media, they will say something, they will say an opinion, and then they'll misconstrue it kind of as a fact and be like, well, I'm just saying these are my thoughts. I could be wrong, I could be right, but I think I'm right. That sounds very familiar. That rhetoric, that it sounds very familiar from a person that's holding the highest office in the land. It's like you never know when something is a joke or if it's fact, if it's fiction, or if it's a lie. You just never really know because they play these mind games. They can't really give you a straight answer on these things. So yes, I honestly do believe that our opinions come from something personal, something that we actually that's something that we are internalizing, and we kind of ask ourselves first, and then we give our own opinions, but then we go to family, we go to friends to get their own opinion. So yes, initially it comes from us.
Awesome, brother. Do you think social media is shaping people's thinking more than they realize?
100%. 100%. Social media, when the very first social media site I ever got on, I believe it was in 2005, 2006, it was a site called Bebo. And that was actually a site where a lot of young kids and teenagers made profiles to interact with their friends. And what was so cool about Bebo is that you could webcam, because before we had FaceTime, the old term for that was webcamming. You either had, back then we were either saying webcamming, or we were saying, hey, Skype me, or IMG Messenger or something like that. But yeah, those were the terms back that I knew of before, because now everyone says FaceTime. It's like, I have a Samsung. I'm not because FaceTiming is an Apple thing. Because to this day I say webcam, but now every now and then you'll hear me say webcamming. But social media for us was fun, because it was like, okay, because back then it was about taking very good profile pictures. It was about when you had your bio, that you just made like a cool bio about yourself. Basically, it was about just talking about like how cool you were. And, same for MySpace. MySpace, we were learning how to code at an early age, because back in MySpace, that's when we had the bracket, HTML / and, we could change the backgrounds. We could put music players on the profile. Back then it was fun, and it was actually something where we had to think. We had to go through so many what was the site I used to use? It was called Photo. It wasn't Photoshop. It was, I can't remember what it was called, but it was this one site I used to use where I would take my photos, and then I would go to that site and I could edit how my photos looked. I remember as a kid, I was getting paid like $5 to I was getting paid $5 just to crop or edit people's photos or edit their profile pictures and stuff like that. And so um social media back then was fun. It actually wasn't even a social thing. Social media back then is like, if I got off of school, no, if I got out of school, we would hurry up to get back on Facebook, on Bebo, or on MySpace. We would go back on those sites and we would tell people actually about our days. It wasn't about anything political. It was about, hey, did you guys hear about the new album that dropped today? There was really no sparring at all. Like literally, it was none of that back then. It was actually fun to have a Facebook, a MySpace account, a Bebo account. And it slowly started transitioning. I cannot give you the year when it started, but I do remember when I started seeing people argue a lot. And the arguments were actually over real life stuff. These are people who went to school together and they might have had a disagreement in class, or they might or somebody got blamed for something, and they would have like a little chat and argue on Facebook, on MySpace, on Bebo, but it never went above that, you know. And shortly after that, it started escalating from people who actually knew each other going at it to you going at a complete stranger that you don't even know. And that's what we see 24/7 now on social media now. People, if someone says, hey, what did you think about the Drake or Kendrick Lamar battle? Somebody will be like, oh, I feel like Kendrick won. And then somebody might say, oh, I think Drake won. And then all of a sudden, it spirals into a big conflict as to why Kendrick won or why Drake won or who has the most views, who has the most money out of between. It starts to go left, right, and it never stops. Like till this day, people are still talking about that rap battle. Till this day, are arguing online about something that happened 2 years ago. So yes, social media it's 100% shaping people's thinking, absolutely, more than they realize, because this topic should not be going on for years. Not that. Now, anything about when it comes to civil rights or when it comes to reparations, yes, that's something I think that's important. That should be going on for years until it's structured the actual way that Black people and minorities want them to be, for sure. But something like that, no.
All right. So how can someone tell the difference between their own thoughts and something they've been influenced to believe?
Oh, that will. Now that one, that's a kind of hard one, but I'm gonna give you an answer for that. So, for instance, I'm gonna go back to what I just said in the previous question. I'm a firm believer that civil rights is not at 100% where it needs to be, and I do believe that the descendants of the transatlantic slavery trade, all of their descendants, dead or alive, should be they should receive their reparations for that. That's my take on it. Those are my own thoughts. But then it could be somebody that says, we've been here for 400 years. We never had time to catch up to our counterparts, the majority here. We should just be completely segregated because they are not trustworthy. And this person can show me the information and show me why they should not be trusted. They can also say to me, when slavery was happening, where were all of the so-called good whites? Where were they? And can make a strong case. And for me, because I have a strong mental fortitude, I can empathize and understand why they feel that way, but I wouldn't let that influence me. Now they could go to somebody else who thinks just like me, but could be a bit more radical, not radical in violence, but just radical in terms of like, no, I don't trust those people, you know, and they can get very heavily influenced by that person. But just because they got influenced doesn't mean they weren't thinking it. That doesn't mean it wasn't their own thoughts. That's why I said that was actually a good question. That was kind of tough for me because a lot of these people are already thinking that, like MAGA. A lot of them were already thinking that. A lot of them have been had problems with minorities when he says illegals. Because to me personally, as a black person, when he said illegals, I really didn't even think about Africans. I straight up thought he was talking about anybody underneath America. So that's all of Latin America. That's all of South America. And that's all they ever talk about, because they can't say we illegals because we the ones asking for money. We the ones asking for our 40 acres and a mule. I know I'm not an illegal. And I know it's tough for them to even try to, even if somebody from Africa, the continent of Africa, not the country of Africa, but if somebody from the continent of Africa came over here, it will be very hard for them to know if they are an illegal immigrant. And the only way they can know is just by simply speaking to them. And that doesn't apply all the time, because within the black community, we have a lot of accents. We have people from Jamaica, from the islands, and, you know, or their family are from the islands, but they've taken on the accent here in America, even though they were born and raised here in America. So they know that. The people in MAGA, they know that. So I already knew. I mean, if you looked at who ICE was getting, if you literally look at who ICE was getting, a lot of them were Latin people. Like, I'm sorry. And don't get me wrong. I did see some people who appear to be black or black African American, or people from the Africa. From Africa. But man, a lot of them people were not black. I'm just going off of what I've seen. I could be wrong. So, you can judge me to a fault. But to me, I knew what they meant. Close our border, stop the illegals from coming over here. Because I'm like, bro, like some, it just seemed very clear as day to me. So that's why, I don't think that this question between our own thoughts and them being influenced by people is too far away from each other. I think they were already thinking it, but once somebody said what they were thinking, that match was lit. It was, oh, see, okay, I knew I wasn't the only one thinking like this, but they just needed a push. They needed a little push, and because of this person's influence. So those two aren't far from each other, because these people were already thinking like that. They were, man. They were already thinking like that.
Is following the crowd always a bad thing, or does it serve a purpose sometimes?
Yes and no. That following the crowd, that following the crowd is always a bad thing. And in terms of does it serve a purpose, sometimes yes it does. Yes and no for that. So I'm gonna stick with the beginning of that. Is following the crowd always a bad thing? No, it's not. And I'll tell you why. No, because coming up, my crowd was my family. And their crowd, my dad's crowd, was his mama and his grandparents. And it goes from my grandma to her parents. So that was the crowd. So we have a crowd, but that crowd is our family. And don't get me wrong, family isn't perfect, but they have done the most for me and have gave me some very crucial advice for me to be where I am in life, and for me to be who I am in life. Now, it's kind of like when Leroy, when your kids, once they graduate high school and go to college, you no longer have that close immersion with them. You're not going to just be around the corner. You're not just going to be 15, 20 minutes away. They could be states away. They could be hours away in a car, days away. So now they have to take everything from you, your wife, your mom, your brother, everyone in that crowd of your family. They have to take all of that knowledge. So then once they step out into college to these crowd of strangers, and they have to use and internalize the knowledge that was bestowed upon them, because now they're on their journey now. And that's my no. Now my yes is using your kids as an example again. If anything that crowd is doing goes against the principles that you raised your kids on, or your cousin, or anybody in your family crowd, then that 100% is a bad thing. I'm not saying that if you go out and you want to do something you never tried before and it could end good or bad. And I don't mean, and when I say good or bad, it could just mean like, you take like a pretest. It doesn't go against your credit, but you take it and you failed it. It's not a bad thing if you try to do something that enhances your life. That's not a bad thing. But if you chose days or a week before to go out with these people who asked you to go party, and instead of studying, and you knew that how you were raised, you'd be like, my dad, my mom taught me that, hey, schoolwork comes first, party can come later. Because once you ace that test and that's over, you can do whatever you want and then be ready for school the next week. But if you knew in advance that you had to study, but you chose to do something that you knew was wrong, then that's on you. That's a bad thing. Now, it does serve a purpose only if it is advantageous to the individual. It is only positive. It is only good. It does serve a purpose if it benefits you 100%. But if it's benefiting someone else in that crowd that you're following and not you, then you're a pawn. And I don't think being a pawn is a good thing. I think being a student is different than being a pawn, because as a student, you're learning something. A pawn, you're being used. You're being used to convey something you don't even believe in, because you might be trying to be cool. You might be trying to appease a guy or a girl that you like. And then at the end, they like this person. They were just using you to get to that person. No. So it does serve a purpose. But does it serve a purpose for you, or does it serve a purpose for them? It should always serve your special interests. And if you ever want to get the perfect example, look at our country. It only serves its interests. It don't care about anybody around it. At least right now. Hopefully that'll change.
Nice. At what point does influence turn into control?
That's a good one too. At what point does your influence turn to control? I think that your influence turns into control once you're asking for something, and we'll call it soft asking. Let's just say I'm a content creator. I have thousands of followers. I make a video go super viral. It's a funny video, and people are liking the stuff that I'm making. But then I get into a type of, I'm offered a deal that if I can get a certain percentage of my followers to play this game that an advertiser is trying to throw me, that I'll get paid a lot of money. But let's say like this game is trash and I know it's trash. So first it goes from me as an influencer saying, hey, you guys, there's this ad I have for this game. It's really good. And this and that. And you guys should try it. But then after a while, the advertiser, they kind of hitting me to the side. They kind of yelling me, hey man, I get enough people, like, we're trying to get you paid. And so you have two options. You could have integrity and just say, hey man, like this game is trash. We can just drop the ad. Or if you're very greedy, it'll go from softly sponsoring to, hey, you guys, look, I really need you guys to play this game, the ad. If you do this, I'll have a stream where I do this and that, and I'm doing this and that and whatever else. And that's when it turns into control, because now you're not advertising. You go from advertising to softly asking to, hey, you guys, like I need this and this and that. Oh, see these people in my chat, they're doing it. You guys aren't real fans. And I've seen that. I've seen streamers do that. I've seen streamers like fully, I've seen them even get mad and say, no, you know what, you guys don't rock with me and this and that. They'll start kicking people out of their stream who's not paying for stuff. That's a real thing that's actually happened. So, the influence you even got was initially from yourself, but then as more people came and started liking your content, it started being like less about you to then more about them. But then once these advertisers come in, now it just focuses solely on yourself now, because now you're seeing all this money you can make. So then now it goes back to being about you, but it's not organic in the way of how you fully established yourself in the beginning. And there's nothing initially wrong until what I said, once they're like, oh, these are my real fans, these are my real viewers, they're actually doing it and this and that, and you're taking people off your stream, you're calling these people out, you're saying, oh, they're good for nothing. It's like, I know who my real fans are, I can say their names and this and that. And even doing that is a very wicked thing to do, because now these people, these viewers, now these are kids now, and they're thinking like, oh no, I have to prove myself and this and that. And we've seen plenty of cases, Leroy, where some of these kids have even went into their parents' their dad's wallet or into their mom's purse and go get their card and swipe it as many times to appease the influencer. That's real control. And now usually as adults, we have a better mental capacity and mental fortitude to be like, okay, yeah, like this person they're just crap. This is not a good person. But these kids, if they really like that influencer, they will go long. They will go a mile if they have to, and just keep swiping this and that. Because there's a popular game, I'm pretty sure your kids know about. It's called like Roblox. They've got like $1 billion lawsuit because kids have been going and taking their parents' debit or credit cards or business cards and buying. I'm talking about maxing them things out and paying for so much stuff. And parents and businesses have been suing Roblox to get their money back, because the influencers who play that game are telling these kids like, oh no, this game is better than that game. Like if you play that game, then you're not a real gamer. I'm like, what? Like And you have to be very careful with games like that when it comes to younger kids, because this is all they know. All they do is they're on their phones, they're on their tablets, they're on their computers. You know, that is all that they are on 24/7. So that's why I really like that question, because influence used to be it used to be your intellect and the people you surrounded yourself with intellect, and what you guys come up as a group, but also individually. But now influence is being replaced with influencers now. Influencers are like gods to these kids now. And I'm so serious when I say that. They are like gods. They worship these people. and and eventually if that influencer does not meet their needs anymore, they will drop them like a rock. They will drop them like it's nothing and find somebody else. So everyone can be replaced, even the influencer.
How about that? Have you ever caught yourself believing something and later realize it wasn't really your own thought?
Definitely. And this question is for, it initially starts in your youth. 100% for me. It starts in your younger phases, and as a kid, teenage years to your early 20s, mid, even to your damn near 30 years old. It's going to be a lot of things that that you're being told, and you probably did believe it. But then, once you do the research or whatever, you be like, oh, okay, well, that wasn't true. Well, like, I thought it was, but then it was like, no, someone told you that. So it wasn't really your own thought. It was something that someone told you. But there's also instances as well where you could actually really believe something. And it was something you were thinking about, but then because of how life goes, that could have been over a span of years. You might have believed it, but then at some point in your life, you might have became a better person or whatever, and then you're looking at like, damn, I can't believe I thought like that. So there is room for growth, and there are things that are instilled in you that are not your own. When we were born, when we came into this world as babies, we were completely unaware. We had to learn things over time. And even some of those things that we are learning are being changed historically and in a good way. So there was a point in time where we were being taught or told that the earth was flat. We believed it. But then eventually, when science got better, we found out, oh no, the earth is round. That's all we thought. Then we found out that the earth rotates. Now, we didn't know how fast, but then some years later after that, we found the earth is spinning 10,000 something miles per hour, but we can't even tell it ourselves because we're in space, and time is relative on proximity. So I've had a lot of thoughts instilled into me that I did believe that weren't my own, but I did believe them. But then I realized, oh, this was just something I was taught. That doesn't mean brainwashing, but it also could mean brainwashing. Because all of us had a teacher. We were all students at some point in time. We had to learn from somebody. We had to learn from groups of people. we, like firstly, we learned how to behave. We learned our morals from our parents, from our family members. We learned that. And even though that wasn't something that I thought of, it was a reliable thing to be taught about morals, about how to behave, about etiquette, of being a gentleman, of a man. When you're walking down the sidewalk, you're supposed to walk on the side of the street, and the woman's supposed to be by the grass. When you go out somewhere and you're with a woman, your girlfriend, your wife, about opening the door for her and closing the door for her when she gets into the car, because that's a way of protecting her. So that is something that was not of my own thoughts, but it was something real. It was something that was needed in my life. That it was something that was actually really needed in my life. So yeah, that was a great question.
Nice. So what does it actually look like to think independently in today's world?
You know, what's actually funny is, and I promise you guys, I don't hate this man. I think he's absolutely hilarious. But the number one person who I could say right now who thinks to answer this question, what does it actually look like to think independently in today's world, is our president of the United States. He don't listen to anybody. He completely listens to himself. He doesn't take anyone's advice. It's his way or the highway. And to me, I actually think he is a great example of what it is to actually be someone who is independent and does not follow anybody. So I'm going to give President Donald J. Trump 100 points because he is the perfect example of what it actually looks like to think independently. Now, in terms of if it's a good thing, bad thing, if he's smart or he's dumb, I will leave that to the viewers. But he's the perfect example. But I'm gonna give my example of to me what it looks like to think independently in today's world. For me personally, I forget the definitions for whether I'm introvert or extrovert, but usually any job I've ever worked, usually I'm completely to myself. And the only thing that actually attracts me to socializing with people is maybe if there's a conversation about music, hip hop to be specific, or anything that's about anything that's going on within the Black community, or just the minorities, anything political, of course, anything about geopolitics, and also just anything about religion or spiritual things. Because I think one of the first things I was fascinated with was language arts. That was my number one subject all through school, was language, reading, definitions, knowing the difference between a pronoun, a synonym. There was a point in my life where I was a rapper, so I had to learn about hyperbole. I had to learn about allegory. I had to learn about similes, metaphors, and that I was really into things like that. So somebody like me, I might not be for everybody, because I'm not the type that would just go up and start a conversation with somebody. I'm very formal. If someone says good morning to me, I'm gonna say good morning, how are you? And they'll probably say, oh, I'm doing well. What about you? And I'm saying I'm doing fine. And then I go about my day. I'm not going to keep the conversation going if it doesn't fully align in in my interests. And a lot of great people that I've met, it's usually because of a situational or a situationship. It's something that was like at work. I've met a lot of good people because when I was a TSA agent, I was a supervisor and I trained them, and I was very I kind of was like a drill sergeant. I made sure that they knew everything that they needed to know, and if they had any questions to ask me. I'm one of those type of people. I really like information. I like to retain a lot of information. I like working jobs where like in TSA the 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 holy grail was to remember the SOP, which stands for Standard Operating Procedures. It's basically all the procedures you need to know to run the checkpoint when you have passengers coming through TSA. I had to remember all of that stuff. And mind you, it didn't stay the same for years. It changed. It could change every 2-3 weeks. It could change every month or 2 months. And then every time it changed, you would have to get recertified for it every time. And so I would have to remember just the small little details and changes. And so that's how I am as a person. I try to be as descriptive as as I can when I talk with somebody, or when I when I was training somebody at work, because it meant a lot to me. But you might find other people though who are more chill. They're more kind of relaxed in how they talk. I think for me, I think I'm more of like a technical person when I talk. I have my moments where I'm more relaxed, but that kind of takes a while because I have to kind of get to know this person, and at the end of the day, because of my interest, I try to see if what they have or the information they have, if it actually aligns with my movement, my mission, what I want. So that's what it looks like for me to think independently. But also, it's really hard for people to persuade me to do something, because as soon as they ask me, it's either yes, no, or I just kind of, like, if I really know the person and I want to be very soft with it, I'll think about it and never get back with them. That's just my way. Like, if I actually really like know this person, but like person isn't as technical, they're not as serious, as reserved, as personal as me. I have different ways of talking to certain types of people. If there's someone like me, I can just oh no, hell no, and go about the day. No one's gonna get mad. But there are people, where I have to be a lot more softer with. My approach has to be a lot more softer. And even if I think it's soft, the way I'm talking to them, it still comes off as very harsh to them. And, that's something I really struggle. That's something I've always struggled with, till this day. But I've never tried to change myself, just because me being truthful with this person hurts them. And I also make it known that, hey, like, I wasn't trying to hurt you or anything, but this is the only way I really know how to respond. So independence is what it looks like to think independently in today's world. I just think it really varies. I think you just know. You'll know. Sometimes you'll know when you first speak to somebody, and sometimes it just takes time, because people have barriers, So I don't follow the crowd. I really do my own thing. I don't really go out a lot. If I do, I'm by myself or I'm with family. It's either or. I'm either by myself or I'm with family. Or if my best friends that I've known since middle school are trying to do something, they barely get to hang out with me. But every now and then, like, I will be with them. So I think that it's hard to actually to see what for somebody to think in, because you don't know until you really approach that person. I'm not approaching most people. That's why, a lot of people that who I do think a lot, or it's because a lot of people who I actually follow on social media, I know that they think independently because I might watch their podcast. I listen to what they say versus all the people of what they say. It either aligns with how I think, or it also teaches me things that I didn't know before. And of course, I fact checked it. I go to see if what they're saying is true. So it's it's a it's a either or. It's a either or thing. Like in nature, you can know if you just directly go up and speak to someone, which I really don't do, but like I say, if it could just be a situation where they might say something to me and then the conversation just gets rolling and then it doesn't stop. So, I rarely go out of my way to talk to people. Usually if I do, it's because I see something that they have something that I like. This person watches anime, or I can clearly see that they're a gamer, or if I see a shirt that's about politics, I'll just ask, "Oh, well, what do you think about that?" It's almost automatic for me. My friends won't do stuff like that. They might, but that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it for that.
Awesome. So if more people stop thinking for themselves, what kind of society does that create?
It creates a hive mind society. When people, and we have that now. People take narratives within musical conflicts, rap battles, within politics, within sports. People take narratives and then they run with it. It's like, for instance, when people this has been a long running question: who was better between Tupac and Biggie? And the clear answer is, to me, and this is my opinion, but this is the clear answer. The clear answer is it's clearly Tupac, because what he did has been, it was generational. It didn't just stay in the 90s. Everything he talked about addressed everything in America, everything within the black community. The black community. So when people ask that question of Tupac and Biggie, that's just me. But then, okay, we'll switch it. People will say, okay, who was better between Michael or Prince? I would think that most people would say Mike. Now, if someone asked me who was a better musician, I would say Prince was, because he knew how to play every instrument. So that's just me, though. Prince was this dude and I found this out about 10, 15 years ago. He was a beast at sports. He was a beast at playing like basketball and stuff like that. So, it honestly kind of just depends. But that just goes back to the what I said about, it's just about people running with narratives. And I will never think that people stop thinking for themselves. I think that, believe it or not, people like to be controlled. I think that at least now we've gotten into a point where no matter what is happening globally, or even when someone gets shot, or about a police officer killing somebody, like a police officer killing somebody black, I feel like when I was younger, that was something that everyone used to really focus on and stay in tune. But now I feel like people see it and then they just kind of look past it because they accept it now. They accept it. People are more accepting of the BS that is happening around them. And so it's not that they didn't stop thinking. I think that over the period of time, cognitively, it has drained them. It has fully drained them. And that just creates a even better a better space for the one percenters or the rich or these people in power to control what's going on here and outside of us. So it just creates a hive mind, because the queen here in America, there isn't a one queen. There are multiple queens. It's not a lot of them. It's like less than 20 of them. But think about it. Even when it comes to bees, there are more than one queens. So that's America. We have a lot of queens, and wherever they choose to take us, we're going to follow it. And don't get me wrong, there's going to be some people that stick up. You're going to have your black sheep or the outcasts or whatever, but then they'll eventually, you'll start to tune them out. You'll see somebody like against this, but we shouldn't do this and this and that, but it's not even going to matter because you're so focused on trying to be happy. Make sure everything is good for your kids. Make sure everything is good for your wife or the family that you're taking care of that's in close proximity. And then food and bills. Once you get into a constant repetitive state of doing that, it's kind of like you accept it now. At first, you say, man, this is some BS. I need a better job. Okay, you found a better job, but you're still doing the same thing. Did you just decide to create a second stream of income? That way, you don't have to work at this job. You could be working more money. You could be doing things that take you outside of your comfort zone. A lot of people are stuck in their comfort zones now. All this stuff we're seeing happen now in politics and around the world, back then, this would put people at dismay. Now it doesn't even do that. People just simply don't care anymore. And they just have accepted being in control and following their master, which is whoever you want it to be, the government, the guy in the office, or these one percenters, these billionaires, whatever they decide. Hive mind mentality.
Interesting. For our last question, do you think most people want to think for themselves, or is it easier just to follow?
Oh yeah, man. I mean, yeah, this is pretty much a good follow up behind the last question you just asked me. But yes, dude, people honestly do want to think for themselves, but we live in a society where everything is against you. How do you pay for a $400,000 house? And then now that you're done paying for this house, you had to pay something called property taxes. I thought I paid for the property already. What are we doing? Property taxes makes absolutely no sense to me, because you are paying not just for the house, but you're paying for the square feet or acres of land that the house is on. It takes people their lifetimes to pay for that. Some people are paying that until they are genuinely old and finally getting on a pension. People aren't paying that in 10 years. People are paying this in 25 to 40 something, almost 50 years. And they can complain to their city council as much as they want to. But if we have these companies that are paying our city, state, and federal leaders, what you say doesn't even matter anymore. So then it's just easier to just follow and flow with the program that and the cards that you have been dealt. And we live in a time now where literally from the 60s all the way to about the 90s and I guess to the 2000s, where voting meant a lot to most Americans and even to minorities. But we've gotten to a point now where more than half of the country doesn't believe voting is important anymore. More than half of the country, if you look at the amount of people who did not vote in whether it was Trump's, Biden's, or whoever president, a lot of people they don't believe anything will change, because we're having two parties that are going back and forth, and one party will do something good and then another party will ruin it again. And I'll give you an example. My dad told me, if you look at what Democrats have done, they might not have done what needed to completely be done for black people. But when you look at what they did for the country, like for instance, we'll start with Bill Clinton. Our country was in a surplus. We were up. We didn't owe nobody. We were doing good. George W. Bush Jr. comes in. We go from here down here. Okay? So then after George W. Bush got us into the war, we're in debt now. Okay. Obama gets in. He gets it. He doesn't get us in a surplus, but he lowers the debt that we're in, right? Then Obama has 2 terms. He does what he could. Then Trump comes in. Debt goes up. Biden comes in. Debt goes down a little bit. Trump back in there. The debt done shot up. The most we've ever seen from a president. We have the highest debt ever. I think this year I think, and quote me on that. You might do some research on this, but I think we went up to $2 trillion. Our GDP was at 4.4% when Joe Biden had got out of office. It is currently at 0.4 under the current administration that we have right now. So when people look at all this, how we had it good, and I remember because the gas was like $1.03 when Bill Clinton was in office. I just remember life was so good, like in the 90s. I really do believe that going into the 2000s. I 100% remember that. And then we got into the war. Things started getting high. Like stuff, you could just tell like something different was going on, but you just couldn't fully. As a kid, at least, I just couldn't fully tell. But it didn't ruin my childhood. But I could just tell stuff like was changing. And so when you have people who have lived twice my life had to deal with the destroying and then the repairing, they're saying that the destroying is just completely outweighing the repair. So it's at that point, it's just easier to just give up and to follow, and it's I think when it comes to voting and governing politics, we are at the worst state ever in American history. We are at the worst state ever. There are no talks. We will not listen to the other side when it comes to, like when like this is just what I've seen and what I've seen. Even when Democrats were in office, they still were able to pass bipartisan things with Republicans. They were able to give Republicans what they want. But the other way around, once Trump got in, he said, no, you tell them all no. And it's like, it's just such this big hate from one side versus the other. And I just think this is the worst case I've ever seen that because I used to always sit, even as a kid, I used to sit and watch like the presidential inauguration or just watch anything about the news or what the president were signing into office. I used to just sit there because I wanted to see what it was like to be an adult. So to be an adult is like you have to watch the news. You have to know about your surroundings. This is me as a kid. I was like, so this is what it's like being an adult. At first I thought it was boring, but you know, I was perplexed by the complexities of the subjects and topics of what they were talking about, because it could be about light bills, utility bills, gas bills being too high, and then what they were going to do to implement to lower the bills from being higher. I just thought that was interesting because I'm like, well, shoot, like if my dad is paying less, maybe he can give me that toy I wanted. So that's what made me really, start really looking into watching the news and getting into politics, because I'm like, okay, like, so all of this, because a lot of people don't understand what politics is, Leroy. A lot of people think that politics is simply what we see going on in Washington, D.C. So when I hear someone say, oh, I'm not into politics, I simply say that's a lie. Everyone is into politics, because here's the definition of politics. Politics is the process, art, or science of government and the exercise of power determining how resources are distributed within a society or organization. That means everyone who says they're not into politics, yes, you are. But you've been conditioned to think that politics is the politics that you see going on in Washington, D.C. No, bruh. You do politics every day. So even so, people don't even understand the definition of politics, but will say, I don't watch politics. Yes, you do. You do every day. Every day you do. So that I wanted to end with that. People have just really lost hope.
I'm so glad you're part of this, man, because you bring a perspective that's not just rushed and not just based on what's popular. You actually take the time and think. And I think that's something people respect, whether they realize it or not. So I thank you, man. Thank you.
I thank you, brother. You have a good one.
All right, brother. And for everyone else, at the end of the day, this isn't just about information. It's about awareness, because the question isn't just what do you believe? It's did you arrive there on your own? That's the shift. This is Perspective Shift Podcast, and we'll see you next time.